Today we are going to start a new topic, that is a controlling process, and the first one is setting performance. So for setting performance standard is a first step of controlling. So here the standard is a set and which would be measured with the comparing with actual performance. So this standard, when we are setting the standard, it is serving as a benchmark towards which the whole organization is working. And so when we are setting this standard, it has a two terms are there, two kind of standards may be there. One is a quantitative standards and qualitative standards. So when we are talking about the cost, the production units, the revenue, at that time we can set the standard in the terms of quantitative. But when we are talking about the morale of the employees, job satisfaction or goodwill is there, or customer satisfaction is there, at that time they are set in the case they will set the qualitative standards. So like that way it is important to set the standards so that they can be matched with the actual performance, and it will be helpful for the controlling process. So here when we are setting the standard, at that time we also have to keep one more thing, that it should be flexible. The standard should be flexible and it should be modified whenever it is required, because we live in a dynamic environment. So whenever the changes take place internally or externally, so at that time if any modification is required in standard, so we must have to do the modification, and we must have to take care that the standard should be realistic standard, it should be achievable standard. Next is a measurement of actual performance. So next stage what we are doing, we are trying to measure the actual performance, what our subordinate, what the employee has done, that we are trying to measure in this next step. So here when we are doing measurement, it should be reliable and it should be an objective and reliable. And there are several techniques are there to for the measurement of actual performance. Like we can do the sample checking is there, or we can prepare a performance report, or we can also do the personal observation is also used to measure the actual performance of the employee. So here what we are doing, when we are measuring this, at that time we are comparing the standard and the actual performance. So it should be we can easily compare when this standard is set in the terms of quantitative terms. All right. So here it is generally believed that whenever the controlling will start whenever the work is completed. It is not like that. Remember friends, whenever the work is going on, at that time also you can do this comparison, or you can measure this actual performance. Suppose there are different parts are there, process 1, process 2, process 3. At that time is process 1 is completed, you can measure the performance on the stop. So you can say that it should be also, it can go the simultaneously, the measurement process and the work should be go simultaneously if it is possible. So you can measure the actual performance while work is going on also. So like that way. And the frequency is also depending on the nature of work. Like if the work is related with safety, you have to measure the performance more frequently also. So when you are and one more thing is there, when we are measuring the actual performance, at that time we may have to prepare a report, and it is prepared by our superior, and at that time he may have to do some different calculations, like we have to find some ratios, net profit ratio, gross profit ratio, return on investment, or we may have to make a progress report of some operational work, like we are doing marketing. So at that time we have to find out the number of units sold, or our market share is increased or not. Or sometime where we are talking about efficiency, at that time the production is there, so how much production is there, how much defective piece are there in production. So when we are measuring actual performance in the small units, in the case of production, we cannot check each and every unit. At that time they are using the sample checking, but in small organization or small units, they are checking each and every unit. Next is comparing actual performance with standard. So here what we are simply, we have the standard, we have the actual performance. So here we are comparing, and this comparison will reveal if any deviation is there, a deviation between our desired result and our actual performance. So comparison will become very easy when the standard is quantitative in nature. So we can easily compare the both of the things. Like if we talk about the performance of the worker, it should be in terms of unit produced. So it will be very easily compare that what is their actual output. All right, so here the comparison is done. Next is analyzing deviations. So when we are doing analyzing deviations, so when we are comparing the standard and actual performance, so we can find any deviation at this stage. So some kind of minimum or acceptable deviations are there. At that time it is not a matter of any big issue, because it is in the range of it is in acceptable range. So there it is not a big issue. But at the same time, when the some key areas, when the some key areas are there which need more attention or more urgently, at that time when we find some deviations are there which require more attention, and it require to we require some corrective action urgently, at that time we must have to report this to the manager or to the management. All right, so for that purpose, for the analyzing deviation, they are using the two different techniques are there. First is a critical point control. So critical point control means what? It is a neither economic or not easy to keep check each and everything, or we can say each and every activity in the organization. It is not possible. So what they are doing, they are focusing on some area that is called critical point control. So they are focusing on these critical control areas, which are if deviation in this part is there, there will be a problem, there will be a critical condition for the organization. So these parts, they are focusing on this part, that is called critical point control areas. So it is also, we can say, some key result areas are there, or they are focusing on that, and these key result areas are set as a critical point controls. So if when we are analyzing at these areas, at that time if something is going wrong in critical point areas, so at that time the entire organization will suffer. So that's why we must have to take care. Like there is a one example, like 5% increase in labor cost and 15% increase in postal charges. In both of the cases, the 5% increase in the labor charges, labor cost or labor charges is critical for us. It is a troublesome for us or organization. Next one is management by exception. So management by exception means what? It is referred as a control by exception also. So here this principle is important for the management control, and it is based on the belief that to control if you trying to control everything, the result will be there will be, you are not controlling anything. So the sentence is like this: if you try to control everything, you are controlling nothing. The result will come in controlling nothing. So here what we are doing here, only significant deviations are if they are going beyond the permissible limit or beyond the acceptable limit. At that time what have to take, what that time we have to inform to the management. suppose there is a 2% suppose there is a 2% increase or decrease in some areas, at that time it is not so much important and it should not be report to the management. It is acceptable range. So we have to see what is the acceptable range of deviation, and if some deviation is in that limit, at that time it is not a matter of a big issue, and it is a adjustable, you can say like this. And suppose at the same time, after the identifying deviation is, suppose on this stage we have identified some deviation, after that we must have to find out the causes. What are the causes are there? These causes may be that this our standard is unrealistic, or it may be, there may be a defective process, there may be a inadequacy of resources, there may be a very we can say structural some drawback may be there, or there is some organizational constraint or some organizational obstacle may be there. So it may be, there may be some factors which are beyond the control of organization. So like that way, there we must have to find out the reasons for the deviation, and afterwards if we can take the appropriate action. And if any appropriate action if appropriate action is not possible, at that time we will report, we will make a report, and we will report this thing to the appropriate level. All right. So next is next is taking corrective action. So this is the final step of controlling process. This is taking corrective action. So no any corrective action is required when the deviations are not there, or deviations are in acceptable limit. And if it is beyond their limit, or beyond their limit, and especially in the important areas, so at that time it is required that we must have to inform this to top management or managerial area. We have to inform them, so that they can find the reasons for that, and they can take the decision for the corrective action. So the corrective action will be taken in such a way so that this deviation should not deviation should not occur again. Like that way we have to take some corrective action, and this corrective action may be involved, we can give some training, like when we are talking about production target is not achieved, we can give the training. At the same time, suppose we can give the additional workers additional machinery, or we can permit them to do overtime. So all these things are corrective action in the case of the production is not done on time. And in the case of there are many other corrective actions are there, like if the defective material is there, at that time we can change the quality specification of material. If there is a defect in machinery, we can do repair existing machinery, or if we can replace also if it is required. If the machinery is outdated, we can upgrade the technology we can replace with the new one. If there is a defect in process, we can modify the process. If there is a defect in physical condition, so at that time we must have to improve the physical condition of the organization. So here you can say that the corrective action it should be taken by the management or manager if the deviation is there and it is out of permissible limit. So I hope you understand, friends. If you want to remember all this process in sequence, there is a one word, that is SMCAT. SMCAT or SMCAT, or you can make any word like this, SMCAT or SMCAT. So setting standards, measurement of actual performance, comparing with standard, analyzing it, and taking corrective action. I hope you understand, friends. Thank you very much.